Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke, reaching out to everybody and saying hi. And I get some questions out there because I'm both a storage architect and I work with DevOps and I work with operations and environments and things like that. And that is, I get, that people get kind of frustrated with, what we call the traditional USB memory stick. And this would also include the SSD cards that are out there, um, which look like this. And these cards and their miniature or the SSD miniature cards are used mostly in like Raspberry Pis and could be inserted into servers, and or they're basically nothing more than the subcomponent of the USB hard drive, but on its own interface and has a gold contact set. But they're basically the same device. And I get complaints. I mean, people are saying, hey, I want to do a lot with my 250, 6 gig memory stick, but when I go and do it and I try to set my video files and so on, it says file format too large to put on the device. And that is correct. Why? Well, in a nutshell, as you look at this interface here, you'll see the contacts, right? And the format of this is linear. In other words, it's flat. The memory stick is just one perplex style chipset, and that file allocation structure is limited. And that's where they come in and say, hey, you're not be able to drag, let's say, a WMI file over, which could be 4 or 5 gigs in size. Or you right click copy and drag over a Windows 11 install. The WIM file is too big, and it says I can't write. It's too large of a file for this device. It's absolutely correct, and the reason why is basically the way the memory sticks are formatted. They are formatted in a bit-to-bit ratio that supports the memory of the memory stick. There eventually was a workaround, and like Rufus, you can use that, or an ISO imager tool or an imaging tool, which can take an image of something and bit by bit it will write it to a memory stick, because that's the way the memory stick wants to do its writing. Where when you have something like a spinning hard drive USB interface drive, preferably a 3.0 or better, this is a mechanical drive and it spins, but the format header in it is actually the equivalency of a file allocation table, also known as a FAT table, that is more conducive to large file formatting because it writes everywhere it needs to fill in the blanks to equate the value of the data and then relink it to the data ID name, and that's where it will store the data. But USB spinning hard drives is the more preferred counter to the memory stick strategy, because when look at the two, they're not the same. But uh, spinning hard drives, USB devices have problems, and they're not the same as the USB memory stick, because these devices actually will fail sooner than these will. So when you store data on these, use this as a transport media only. Don't put it in a safe and think it's going to stay there forever. It's not. These devices are known for failing. When they fail, they fail. They go dead. A spinning hard drive process does have the ability of giving you a little extra functionality, because it can actually rewrite data if it suspects a bad sector to another part of the hard drive, and it's really functional and redundant. Except USB 3.0 and many hundreds of gigs of data, slow, very slow. So what would I recommend if I had a little bit of money to get the best of both worlds? Memory works well, but the file allocation function works better. So what can do this and give me that last little bit of squeeze and performance that I want? And the answer to that is basically NVMe. Yep, I know, just a little extra money, getting one of these little memory cards, right? And then you get yourself what we call a USB 3.0 plus, which basically is, it's got the C format connector interface here. And this interface is basically designed to go into notebooks and more of the later version releases and newer notebooks. And of course, here you have the heatsink style enclosure that's housing the NVMe stick. Now, why do I recommend this? Well, because really it is SSD. in a way, but it's NVMe SSD. And the performance is never going to be there for a USB port, but it's really going to be able to say, hey, USB port, whatever class you are, 1, 2, 3, or plus, you are going to be able to come back down and give me everything you got. Give me a last scrunging effect. So for instance, as I was using a memory stick on a fairly decent dump, I was getting on a USB 2.0 about 20 megabytes sustained on board. With the hard drive, I got also roughly about 20 megabytes of transfer rate on board on a 2.0. I know it's a 2.0, but that's what ends up happening. You never have an available 3.0 USB port to plug into because you're backing up something from somewhere that's old. So remember that. Compatibility is crucial. Then I put this guy in, and the same port, USB 2.0, I got 26 to almost 27 megabytes of writing capacity on this guy, opposed to the other two. So I decided, because I deal with a lot of data, hundreds of gigs at a time, and even with this guy, it took 4 hours to transfer 500 and some odd gigs. I think it was 500 and some odd gigs, but the point is, it did it, opposed to a memory stick, which wouldn't even try to do it, and or a SSD drive. Now, the other thing that needs to be discussed is when you're using Raspberry Pi devices, do you use the little mini SSD cards as your boot device, or should you use a memory stick as a boot device, or should you use like a transition SSD or a SATA interface board on the Raspberry card, which would be sitting on top of it, and then you could run an SSD whatever off of it, or even a basic spinning hard drive? The answer to that is really just use the little mini card. It actually is the best solution. The only key thing about these little tiny memory cards, especially when you're working with something like a PC and you suddenly lose power, not good. There's no buffering. There's no write my last kilobyte statement to the system. That's the only bad thing about Raspberry Pis, is if they abruptly terminate, I got to go in and do some repairs on the memory stick. So be careful about the nature of memory sticks, SD cards, and mini SSD cards. They don't like loss of power. So when you're doing this stuff and you might have a dying machine, don't use any of those. Just use a hard drive or NVMe USB stick. And this is just a cute little video that I brought out that I thought would be really good to bring to everybody's attention. And lastly, the other question that came up on the USB front is, should I and can I and would I want to have USB standards for floppy disk, DVD disk, burner / and or 5¼ inch floppy drive setup? And the answer to that is, well, based on your needs. Just recently, I had come in contact with my stepfather's old archives, and guess what? I need DVD drives and I need floppy drives to read all of his stuff, to make sure that nothing falls to the side. So it really depends on your demand. If you do photos and you do archiving and you're the patriarch of the family that scans and brings in documents that are important to the family history and so on, then absolutely, yeah, just get the drive type medias, put them in a box, put them away, and pull them out as you need them. Outside of that, they're great musical instruments. I think you've seen some of the YouTube videos out there where people have taken printers and floppy disks and CD-ROM drives and they make music out of them, which is incredible. I didn't know you could do that. But hey, that's what reinventing IT is all about, right? All right, well, this is Brad Dyke. I am signing off. I hope you enjoy, and more to come. This coming Thursday, I will be rebuilding the lab by first tearing it down. That will be one video, and then by introducing the new design, which will be the second video, and my data centers have been rebuilt. God bless and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.